That trying to seek perfection is just another form of procrastination? And why, as a doc student, do you keep sitting on that draft when you know you should submit it because you want it to be perfect? In today's episode of Dunder Station Office Hours, I want to get at the truth of why you won't submit your documents and the truth about why perfectionism is keeping you from finishing your dissertation this year. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you all, and I want to say thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Dunder Station Office Hours. I'm your host, Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of Done Dissertation, where we demystify the dissertation process so that doctoral students can write and defend their dissertation in 1 year or less. If you're a doctoral student that needs support and you're ready to finish your dissertation proposal or final defense over the next 4 months, you definitely want to apply to the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. It is a 4-month coaching experience with the goal that over the next 4 months that you will either have defended your dissertation proposal or your final dissertation. To learn more about our program and to apply, visit www.velocitydissertation.com. And again, I want to say thank you all for tuning in. Before we get started, let me know who you are in the comments so I can see where you're coming from. Let me know what university, if you're a doc student, where you are in the process. I'm looking forward to having this conversation. All things we're going to talk about today are around perfectionism, because this is the thing that is holding a lot of students back from finishing. And I want to talk about what I'm seeing, having worked with a number of clients, and what you all can do to overcome perfectionism. Because what you're going to learn today is that perfectionism is not the real issue at hand. So we're going to dig deep and talk through this. And so definitely what you can do for me is let me know who you are in the comments. For those who are watching live, and if you're watching this on the replay, go ahead and jot who you are in the comments. I'll be glad to stay in contact and communicate with you all. And make sure that you share this with 1 or 2 people in your network that you know need support. I know you got a doctoral student, a friend who has been stuck in the dissertation process trying to figure out how to get through, and use this video today to give them some encouragement and some support. And shout out to DL Todd, our Darshell Todd, coming in from Atlantic City, New Jersey. And coursework is completed at Stockton University. Perfect. And thank you for sharing that, Darshell, with your colleagues. Yeah, because we definitely want to get at this, because a lot of folks have been struggling trying to figure out what's going on. And hey, Constance, good to see you on Instagram. And S Shepherd 16. I'm not sure who you are. If you let me know who you are in the comments, it'd be perfect. But it's good. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with y'all, because it's just really important that we really start thinking about how perfectionism is really keeping us back from getting through the dissertation process. And so first thing we got to start thinking about when we start talking about perfectionism, what I've found from working with clients, and this may be your case, right? For right now, a lot of you, and this may, again, be your specific situation, is that a lot of you care more about, and you need to care more about being done than being perfect. So if you want to overcome your perfectionism and get through this process, you got to be more concerned with being done than being perfect. Because what is happening is right now, if you've been holding on to those drafts for months, nobody can do anything to help you with that. But because you have this goal, like it has to be perfect, you don't submit, you're literally the reason why you haven't finished the process. And just to be quite frank, because we as faculty members, and I see Dr. Austin is on here right now, we as faculty members can't do anything to support you if you don't send us anything to work with. It just is the fact and reality of it. And so we got to start thinking about, and you got to start caring more about being done than being perfect. But I do understand that these issues start early on, right? Imagine you've gone through K through 12 education, and the goal was to get an A. Then you go to undergrad, and you're like, shoot, I'm trying to get high GPA so I can get out of the program. You get to your master's program, same kind of concept. Like, let me do the coursework, let me submit the papers, and if I submit the papers, I'm going to get an A and I'll get my degree. But when you get to the doctoral journey, the coursework might be like that. But for those of you who've just finished coursework, I know, Darshell, you said you just completed coursework. As you enter the dissertation phase, it starts to change. It's not just about submitting the papers and you'll get a check and get out of the program. That's no longer the case. It is more so about your ability to express ideas. There's no grading sheet on the dissertations, no A, B, C, or D. This is a completely different process. And for a lot of us, we've gotten so ingrained in our minds that we have to be perfect because that's how we were taught. Our parents taught us to be great students. And you all get to this point in the doctoral journey because you all were great students and you learned how to be a student. But the whole purpose of the dissertation is to show your work as an independent scholar. That is very different and a different goal altogether. Like each of you all who are tuning in today are actually generating new knowledge. That is something that, is very different than any other type of program that you're going to go into. You literally are all creating something tomorrow that wasn't there today. And so you got to start thinking about that. But some of us let our perspectives, an idea about, oh, I've gone through school all of my life and I've gotten A's. And so when I go to the dissertation, I need to get an A on the dissertation. And let me be quite frank, nobody cares what you got on the dissertation. They just want to make sure that you got the degree. And so you got to start thinking about, you got to be more intentional about being done than being perfect. And I see this a lot of times from my students, particularly in my own doctoral students. For folks who take me, we usually have an introductory class where we talk about social science research, and I teach the methods course. And then typically when folks come to my class, they submit their first paper. Typically the papers aren't that good, and they get a lot of feedback, and probably more feedback than they've ever gotten in their academic career. And I do this intentionally because I want to set them up for success early on. So if we can get through some of the hard headaches early on with the writing, it makes the process so much easier. But it's always at least one or two students who are going to try to challenge me on the grade. It just is what it is. And if you're that student that's going to challenge the professor or challenge your chair, let me know, because I know it's always somebody's going to challenge the professor, right? Like, you're the reason why it's wrong, not in taking any accountability for it. But what I've come to learn is that if we don't start addressing those issues now, and quite frankly, being okay with getting feedback, we'll still stay stuck in this idea that my writing has to be perfect rather than being done. In this case, a lot of my students, when they first come in, I really give a lot of feedback because I want them to change and improve. And so by the end of the course, of course, they drastically improve their writing, because that's what I do as an educator, to get folks from where they are to a new place where they couldn't see themselves previously. But I would say for a lot of you all, are you all willing to sacrifice your idea of being perfect in order to be done? That's a question you have to consider, because for some of you all, you are so adamant about being perfect, you'll just stay stuck in the program forever. And then you'll start blaming everybody and everything for why you didn't succeed. And I've seen it over and over again. You start blaming your chair, like your chair's not supportive. Um, you know, they don't give you good feedback. But a lot of times, have you given them something worthwhile to give feedback on? Like, these are things that really pop up in this process, and you got to start thinking about. And that's one of the major things. If you want to overcome perfectionism on your way to dissertation success, you have to care more about being done than being perfect. And if this resonates with someone, please let me know in the chat. And for those who are just tuning in, you're watching another episode of Dissertation Office Hours. On this episode, we are talking about how to overcome perfectionism to finish your dissertation. And this episode of the Dissertation Office Hours is sponsored by the Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program, which is a 4-month coaching experience with the goal to help doctoral students either defend a dissertation proposal or final defense over the next 4 months. So if you're a doctoral student that needs support, feel free to visit www.velocitydissertation.com. Or if you're on Instagram, you can click the link in our bio, and it'll take you right to our page to learn more about our program and to apply. And shout out to Sarah, who is on Instagram. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate that. And for those who just jumped on, let me know who you are and where you're coming from. And again, we want to talk about today perfectionism. And this is something that holds up so many people from getting through the process. And I definitely don't want it to be you. And I'm glad that this is relatable. Yeah, I'm all about, in terms of how I approach coaching and supporting doctoral students, it has to be relatable. At the end of the day, you all got to get the insight and things that you need to get through your dissertation process. And I don't want the ideas to be so complex that it doesn't come across. This is what I talk about more in my book, 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation, just a really practical, relatable guide to help you get through the dissertation process quickly. And with that, we're talking about perfectionism. So once you start having in the belief that you'd rather be done than be perfect, the next step in order to overcome perfectionism to finish your dissertation is that you have to master what I call the 80% rule. And in the book, 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation, I explain the 80% rule more in depth, but I'm going to talk a little bit about what this means right here. And essentially, the 80% rule is something I created that says for doctoral students, your goal is never to get your writing perfect. Your goal is to get it to 80% satisfactory. And then what you got to do is turn it into your chair and committee and allow them to help you to push it to other 20%. Because here's what I've learned being in academia for now, 11 years. Faculty will always find something to critique. I'm just letting you all know again, faculty will always find something to critique. So your goal should never to get it to be perfect, because even the time when you believe like, I got this perfect, they will find something. I might even talk about my own experience getting published as a researcher, right? I've been pretty active as a scholar. I have over 70 publications. But best believe in all 70 of those publications, when I've submitted them to journals or book chapters or whatever the publication was, Eventually, they all got accepted and published, but best believe I've had iterations of revisions from reviewers in this process. So even your very highly accomplished, prolific scholars go through this, and they know very well that anybody who's in academia, they will find something to critique. So as you're thinking about your dissertation process, one way to overcome perfectionism is to follow what I call the 80% rule. So your job is to get it 80% satisfactory and let your committee and folks that are involved in your process take you the rest of the way. And what I've learned from doing this work is that your imperfect draft that you have in someone else's hands to get feedback is much better than a perfect draft in your head. So the goal here is to submit. And I'll repeat that again for you all. Your imperfect draft in somebody's hands that you can get feedback on is much better than a perfect draft in your head. Because here's what I do know. If you don't submit, you're not getting out of the program. And that's just is what it is. So if you let those ideas of my writing has to be perfect, you will stay stuck and you will stay right where you are today. And we'll be doing another live a year from now talking about this. You'd be like, man, he did say that a year ago that if I wanted to be perfect, I'd be stuck here and I'm sitting right here. And it happens all the time. I get clients that come to our program after 6 months, 10 months, 15 months being stuck and not adhering to some of the strategies that we share to help folks get through. And Jeffrey says, true. I try to be honest with folks about this thing because I've seen a lot of students. I've seen when students have stayed where they are because they don't want to change. And folks who adapt the 80% rule, particularly those in my program, once they adapted, like, yeah, I'm going to get this thorough as I can, but I'm not going to let my desire for it to be perfect to hold me up from submitting. And once you get over that hurdle, it becomes so much easier because what happens is when you start to get feedback, it gets you one step closer to being done. That's the trick. And that's the thing that we kind of have to get out of our own minds with this process. And we'll stay stuck for so long when all it takes is just for us to do the writing and submit. And if you're someone who needs support and you're trying to figure out how to get through, you don't have the structure down, the clarity, then it's okay, definitely to get some support. You might need extra support to get you to the 80% to get it into your committee and chair to push it to 100. Those things are okay. Everybody is at a different level in terms of the writing, in terms of their process. So there's nothing wrong with definitely getting help to get support. But again, don't let that imperfect draft that you're afraid to submit keep you from getting out of the process. I promise you, if you master the 80% rule, you will be off to the races to getting your dissertation done quickly. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it's just a matter of you being intentional about finishing the process. And so again, if something like this has resonated, please let me know in the comments. Again, if you guys questions at the end of this, I will definitely take any questions that you have. And then at the very end, if we want to jump on Instagram, we can do some video, or folks don't come up here, I can bring you up on video. You just have to shoot a comment and let me know, and I'll find you and bring you up to ask your question. And again, this episode, for those who are just tuning in, I see some folks just popping in. This is Done Dissertation Office Hours. I'm your host, Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of Done Dissertation, where we work with doctoral students to help them write and defend their dissertation in 1 year or less. And this episode of Office Hours is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. It is a 4-month coaching experience with the goal of helping a doctoral student write and defend a dissertation proposal or final defense in the next 4 months. So if you're looking to get support that you need to get through, I want you to visit www.velocitydissertation.com, and you can learn more about the program and to apply to work with us. We still have a few slots remaining because I have one student who's getting ready to defend next Tuesday. So a slot is opening up. I'm so excited for this future doctor. I can't wait to share the news and attend their defense. So make sure that you apply to work with us, because folks are getting in and out of their programs, and you definitely don't want to miss out if you need the support to get through. And again, this episode, we are talking about issues around perfectionism and how to overcome perfectionism to get through the dissertation process. And the last piece that I want to talk about before we go to the Q&A is that, perfectionism at its core is really a symptom. And what I would say is the lack of confidence is the virus that is really taking over your dissertation journey. So perfectionism appears to be the issue for a lot of us, but that is not the issue at all. It's actually around the lack of confidence. And here's how I know this is to be true. I get a lot of students who apply to work with us who are exceptional writers, and they don't believe that they are. And what I've started to learn is that, it's the lack of confidence sometimes that keeps us from finishing, because you're doing something that you've never done before. And let's be quite frank. And if this is you, let me know in the comments. A lot of folks have been beat up during the doctoral journey. I say this all the time. I surely was beat up along the journey. I'm not, Definitely nothing perfect, but I have experienced my own set of challenges trying to get through the doctoral process. And just to give one example, I tell people this all the time. When I was a doctoral student, my first class, my professor, who is now one of my greatest supporters and mentors, shout out to Dr. Shockley. And initially, when I first took his first class, first year as a doc student at Morgan State University, I'm thinking I'm a great writer. I got great writing score undergrad. I did an honors thesis undergrad, did master's program. They all said I was a great writer. I got to Dr. Shockley's class, and first paperback, uh, it was on page 3. He wrote a big X on it and then said, "You need to see a writing coach in order to improve this." And I'm telling you, I was hurt. Like, I just couldn't believe it. And at first, it beat me down. I was just like, dang, I can't believe he put a big X and said I need to do something better. And again, I couldn't see past my own situation. And I think for a lot of us, we get stuck on trying to, we get stuck on how we've done things. And when we encounter someone who's challenging us, sometimes it can be very scary. But here's what I've learned: you got to address this in order to get through. Like, you have to start understanding that perfectionism is not your issue. It's the confidence that is. Because what ends up happening is that when you have confidence, you're willing to put your work out there. You're willing to get feedback. But again, these doctoral programs will beat you down a lot of times. And Jeffrey Frost says, yeah, same happened to me. Yeah, it happens to a lot of us. It's not uncommon in this process. I share freely and openly because that's just part of my journey. Like, it is what it is. And again, I've had this happen so many times, and it's just very interesting. And, folks always don't believe it, but, when I say these things, it's the truth. And just to show you all, Instagram, you won't be able to see this, but for everyone else who's tuning in, I'll show you like how this really goes sometimes as you're, trying to navigate this process. So this is literally the page from my professor on my paper I wrote in 2011. So I always give receipts for these things because people don't believe it. Like, I've been highly prolific as a writer, but I didn't always start like that. And again, it is really an issue around confidence. You can see how this professor like carved up my paper, like literally like just destroy what all that I had going on. And it hurt, y'all. Like, all the comments, feedback, and the writing. And then again, in this green shaded at the bottom, the professor just said, "You will need a writing coach and editor in order to improve this." And shout out to Dr. Shockley, because after this, he was my biggest help because I started to take some initiative to try to figure out what I was doing and how I could be different as a writer. So again, I always share things from experience, and I definitely don't want you all to think that I'm here trying to say something I haven't gone through myself, because I got the receipts, I got the war rooms to prove it. But here's what I started to understand is that I wanted my writing to be perfect, and then this experience happened, and I had a decision to make, which a lot of you have. Either you let what the comments that you get define who you are as a writer, or you change your course of action and you figure out how to improve. And for me, I had to figure out how to improve. And so what I did is I started to read articles every day for my second year in the doc program. Every day I read one article. And that was the difference, because I had to build my confidence. And for me, my confidence came from being immersed in the literature and started to understand, how do these people, researchers that I admire, share ideas with each other? And once I started to do that, it became so much easier to write. And again, it helped me build my confidence. So by the time that I got back to that professor, I took him again. I took every time he offered a class, I took it because I wanted the challenge. And for a lot of folks, we've run away from the challenge because we lack the confidence to face the challenge head up. And I will let you all know that this process will require you to have confidence in your work, because you are going to go to a dissertation defense and have to defend your work in front of your committee, peers, etc. You got to have some confidence, and you got to have some swag on it. Like, it just is what it is. So now's the time to develop that confidence, develop that swag, so that when you get to the point that you feel great to defend your work. Like, now, put me in any room, I'm going to talk about work. It doesn't even matter. Preparation, no preparation. I'm ready to talk about my work, and ready for all types of questions that I may get. Because again, it's all about building confidence. But a lot of us want to be perfect so bad, and we say that's the reason why we aren't successful, but we aren't willing to look internally and say, actually, I'm not confident in who I am as a researcher. And a lot of times the confidence is built on a couple of things. You haven't read enough. So sometimes it's like when you're trying to write, particularly at the proposal phase, you're trying to write, especially your literature review, and you get frustrated because you keep citing the same scholars, and you're like, there's nothing written on my topic. You start saying those types of things, but really you just haven't read enough about what you're researching. And I see a lot of times that one way to build your confidence is to be actually well read in your area. Another piece is about the writing. A lot of folks lack the confidence because they're scared about what the feedback they're going to get about their writing. So if this is you, the longer you stay in that mindset that I'm going to hold on to my writing because I don't want others to see me as mediocre, you will stay mediocre. So if you keep holding on, you will stay where you are. As soon as you start to say, hey, I'm going to get this as good as I can right now, but I'm willing to get feedback in order to improve it. I know I'm going to have multiple drafts and iterations. It frees you up from the process because a lot of you all, in efforts to be perfect, you want things to go. I write my document, I submit it to my chair. In the words of my coach, one of our coaches, Dr. Patricia Varela, she said it's hot fire. So in her mind, she always talks about like when I submit this work, it's going to be hot fire the first time. That's our thought, right? But we realize that it's just not hot. Joint's lukewarm at best. And so we submit this work, it's not that good. And then we get upset when we get the feedback. And then we have to go back and do revisions. What I would say for you, the revisions is part of the journey, it's part of the process, and it's how you build your confidence. So don't be scared of revisions and feedback. Now, when it gets to a point where you actually a very strong writer and you're getting critique in a way that's pushing you back in the process, that's very different. And those are types of things we help our clients deal with in the Velocity Group coaching program, because sometimes even as a confident, strong writer, you will experience hiccups in this process that have nothing to do with you at all. But when you have confidence, you're willing to stand firm in those situations and challenge and do what you need to do to get through. But again, confidence is the issue, not perfection. And that is the truth about everything. But what I will say is that every semester that you stay stuck in this mindset that you want to be perfect, it will cost you time. It will cost you money because you're going to pay tuition every semester. And then what it will cost you is your sanity, because the dissertation will be just looming over your head. And I know for a lot of folks, I just had this conversation with one of our clients who's defending next week. And they talked about how, they're excited to be defending soon because this will be the first holiday that they can enjoy without doctoral work they have to do. Can you imagine next year during the holiday season being done with your dissertation and you can just focus on all the other things, family, friends, go out and do all the parties, not having to think about, man, if I miss out, if I go to this party, I know I had today's my writing day, man, I should be writing. And that's a terrible feeling to have. And it all starts with you putting the work in and understanding that you have to start doing the work and overcoming your perfectionism. And at the core, you need to start becoming more confident in your work. Confidence is the key to this process, because with confidence, you will start to do things and operate differently than you are currently. And I see this all the time with my clients who come into the program, feel like they're stuck. And then next thing you know, 2-3 months later, they look up and like, whoa, my proposal done. Or, wow, I'm actually like getting ready to defend my dissertation. It happens very quickly, because so once that confidence switch turns on and you get the right strategies that we help doctoral students get, you're off to the races. And thank you for this comment about, a lack of confidence can keep one from finishing a dissertation. It is true. I see it over and over and over again, and I hate to see it because you all are doing great work. I want you all to be, in the doctoral community as someone who has finished their terminal degree. I'm tired of seeing folks with ABDs. I keep seeing it. I just actually somebody messaged me on Twitter or LinkedIn yesterday, and then their title had ABD. Like, my goal is to help them get rid of that title so they can just put doctor on there. It makes absolutely no sense. And so if you find that you have been stuck in this process and you're trying to be perfect and the way you've done things has not worked, it is all right to seek help and get support. And with that, I would ask for you, if you're in this point and you need help more than what you're currently getting, definitely consider working with us in the Dissertation Velocity Group coaching program. It is a 4-month coaching experience with the goal to help you write and defend your dissertation proposal or final defense. If you want to learn more, you can visit www.velocitydissertation.com. Definitely don't let your pride and ego keep you away from getting out of the process. It just makes absolutely no sense. Shout out to the People's Editor who joined on Instagram. Good to see y'all. And so with that, I want to go ahead and take any questions that folks might have. If folks want to jump on live, you can do so with me on Instagram. If folks are on, make a request. Or if you are seeing this on LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever you are, if you shoot me a DM or you put a comment in so I can see it, I'll bring you up if you want to ask your question live and have some time to have an exchange about what you're working on right now. So definitely shoot me. If you're on LinkedIn, shoot me a DM. I have my window open. Facebook, you can do the same as well. love to hear what questions you all might have about where you all are in the process. And so I'm just bringing up my windows. So if you all send a request, you definitely pop on live. And again, this is an opportunity to get some quick help. So like, don't let your pride get in the way. If you need support to get through, then like come online and ask your questions so we can have an exchange so that you can get the insight you need to possibly finish up wherever it is that you're working on. And shout out to everybody who's been on so far, to Darshell. And thank you, Darshell, for tagging 4 or 5 people. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Adebola, for dropping in. Jeffrey Foster for dropping in. I really appreciate you all. Shout out to Constance, who was on Instagram, and Sarah as well. And I know some other folks have been tuning in and out. I'm not sure who is still on. No problem. I'm just glad to be of a support for you all. I want you all to get through this process, and don't let don't let the programs beat you down. Like this is definitely not needed. But Darsha, do you have a question? I would love to. If you have a question you want to pop on, I'd be glad to have you come on live and you can ask your question and we can have a conversation. Anybody else? Any other questions? I'll stay on for a couple more minutes to make sure. Let's see. I don't see anything right now. I'm just checking LinkedIn. If not, we will jump off for the evening. But I do want to say thank you all so much for dropping in, tuning into this. It's really helpful when I see folks on that can really give encouragement and support. Perfect. Definitely taking the suggestions. Definitely get what you need so you can get through. And again, for those of you who are just tuning in, it would really be helpful if you can follow us on all of our social media platforms. So I know some of you all are on LinkedIn or on Facebook. A couple people jumped in from YouTube. But if you just find Done Dissertation on all the platforms, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. If you find us on all the platforms, just stay connected with us because we do different things on different platforms. That would be really helpful for us as we try to build our social media presence. And again, any questions that folks might have, I'll stay on for a couple more minutes. And again, I'm excited for you all to get through this process, use this information. And if you use something that works, shoot me a message, shoot me a DM, because I like to actually hear about these things when people use things, because sometimes, I'm not able to work with you all in our program. And so I'm always interested to see who uses the information and how it helps you get to where you need to get in the future. So with that said, I want to say thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of Done Dissertation Office Hours. I'm your host, Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of Done Dissertation, where we demystify the dissertation process so that doctoral students can write and defend their dissertation in 1 year or less. If you need support to get to this doctoral journey, please don't hesitate and please don't stay stuck. Definitely reach out to us in our Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program, which is a 4-month coaching experience with the goal to help you write and defend your dissertation proposal or final defense over the next 4 months. So if you're ready to turn this dissertation around quickly, and you're tired of spending tuition dollars and you want to get through, and you're tired of going to the holiday parties and people keep asking, when are you finished with that book? You definitely need to work with us. You can visit www.velocitydissertation.com to learn more about our program. And until next week, good people, I hope you all have a blessed week and look forward to seeing you all soon.